Welcome to DREAMLAB Knowledge, where we explore the profound mysteries of human potential and the remarkable journeys that begin in childhood. Tonight we embark on an extraordinary exploration into one of parenting's most beautiful and challenging adventures, discovering the hidden talents that lie dormant within every child, waiting to be awakened, nurtured, and brought into the light. Imagine for a moment that every child is born holding a secret, not a secret they keep intentionally, but one that even they don't yet know exists. Within each young mind and heart lies a constellation of gifts, abilities, and potential that will only reveal themselves through time, exploration, and the patient observation of those who care for them. Some children will show their talents early, bursting forth with abilities that seem almost supernatural in their precociousness. Others will keep their gifts hidden for years, like seeds beneath winter snow, waiting for the right conditions to bloom. This is the story of how we, as parents, educators, and caregivers, become talent detectives, archaeologists of potential, and gardeners of possibility. It is a story that requires us to slow down in a world that moves too fast, to observe when we are tempted to direct, to listen when we want to speak, and to trust that every child carries within them something magnificent that the world needs to see. The science of hidden potential. Let us begin by understanding what we mean when we speak of talent. For generations, people believed that talent was something you either had or didn't have, a fixed gift bestowed at birth by genetics or fate. A child was either smart or not smart, artistic or not artistic, athletic or not athletic. This belief, comfortable in its simplicity, has been shattered by decades of research in developmental psychology, neuroscience, and education. In 1983, a psychologist named Howard Gardner revolutionized how we think about human intelligence with his theory of multiple intelligences. Gardner proposed that intelligence is not a single, measurable quantity that could be captured by a simple test score. Instead, he identified 8 distinct types of intelligence, each representing a different way that the human brain can excel and express itself in the world. There is linguistic intelligence, the ability to use words masterfully, to paint pictures with language, to convince, explain, and move others through the power of communication. Children strong in this intelligence may speak early, tell elaborate stories, remember conversations in striking detail, or develop an insatiable love of books before they can even read themselves. Logical mathematical intelligence represents the capacity to think in abstract symbols, to see patterns where others see chaos, to solve problems through reasoning and systematic thought. These children might build complex structures with blocks at age 3, understand cause and effect, relationships intuitively, or become fascinated by numbers and how they govern the world around them. Spatial intelligence allows a person to perceive the visual world accurately and to recreate or transform what they see. Children with this gift might draw with unusual sophistication for their age, navigate spaces effortlessly, or build three-dimensional creations that show advanced understanding of form and structure. Musical intelligence manifests as sensitivity to rhythm, pitch, melody, and tone. Some children with this intelligence will hum in tune before they can speak in sentences, create their own songs spontaneously, or become utterly absorbed when music plays, their small bodies moving in perfect time to rhythms they've never been taught. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence is the ability to use one's body with precision and grace to solve problems or create products using physical movement. Watch a young child climb a tree with the confidence of a mountain goat, or manipulate small objects with the dexterity of a surgeon. and you're witnessing this intelligence in action. Interpersonal intelligence is the capacity to understand other people, to perceive their motivations, moods, and desires, and to work effectively with them. Children strong in this area often become the peacemakers on the playground, the ones who notice when a friend is sad, who can mediate disputes with wisdom beyond their years. Intrapersonal intelligence turns that understanding inward. It is self-awareness, the ability to understand one's own emotions, motivations, and inner life. These children may be deep thinkers, keeping journals at young ages, reflecting on their experiences with unusual maturity, knowing themselves in ways that make them seem older than their years. Finally, naturalistic intelligence represents sensitivity to the living world, an ability to recognize and classify plants, animals, and natural patterns. These are the children who collect rocks and leaves with the dedication of scientists, who can name every bird in the park, who feel most alive when their hands are in dirt and their faces are turned toward the sky. Gardner's theory teaches us something crucial. Every child has strengths, every child has potential, and every child has talents that are waiting to be discovered. The challenge is not whether our children have gifts, but whether we have the wisdom and patience to help them find and develop those gifts. The earliest signs. The journey of discovering a child's hidden talents begins at birth, though most parents don't realize they're on this journey at first. In those early months and years, as we're focused on the basics of keeping a small human alive, we may miss the subtle signs that hint at what lies beneath the surface. Research conducted by developmental psychologists has revealed that giftedness and talent often announce themselves quietly in infancy and toddlerhood. An unusually alert baby who tracks faces and objects with intense focus may be showing early signs of advanced cognitive development. The infant who becomes absorbed in observing the world, who seems to be taking in everything with an almost unsettling intensity, is not just a good baby who entertains themselves. They may be demonstrating the kind of heightened perceptual awareness that often accompanies exceptional ability. Language development provides some of the clearest early indicators. While the average child speaks their first word around 12 months, some gifted children are using words as early as 4 or 5 months. More telling than the age of first words, however, is the trajectory of language development. Children who progress rapidly from single words to complex sentences, who develop extensive vocabularies seemingly overnight, who use grammatically correct language without being taught grammar, are revealing something about the wiring of their brains. But here's what makes talent identification so challenging in young children. Exceptional ability doesn't always look exceptional. Sometimes it looks like intensity, sometimes it looks like difficulty. The toddler who has meltdowns when things don't go according to plan might be struggling with the perfectionism that often accompanies high ability. The preschooler who won't play with children their own age might be seeking intellectual peers rather than age peers. The child who asks endless questions about death, existence, and other heavy topics isn't being morbid. They're demonstrating the kind of abstract thinking that typically develops much later. Memory is another telling indicator. When a 2-year-old remembers events from months ago in vivid detail, recalls the names of people they've met only once, or can recite entire books from memory after hearing them a few times, they're showing unusual cognitive capacity. These aren't party tricks to be shown off to relatives. They're windows into how a particular brain is developing. Physical development also offers clues, though these are often misinterpreted. The child who refuses to crawl and instead goes straight to walking may be showing both physical confidence and a drive for efficiency. The toddler with extraordinary fine motor control who can manipulate small objects, draw recognizable shapes, or complete puzzles meant for older children is revealing strengths that might develop into artistic, surgical, or engineering excellence. Emotional intensity is perhaps the most overlooked indicator of giftedness. Children who feel things deeply, who cry at sad stories, who become overwhelmed in crowded or chaotic environments, who show remarkable empathy even as toddlers, are not simply sensitive. They may be experiencing the world with an intensity that correlates strongly with intellectual and creative giftedness. This emotional overexcitability, as psychologists call it, is not a problem to be fixed, but a characteristic to be understood and supported. The art of observation. If we want to discover our children's hidden talents, we must first learn to truly see them. This seems simple, but in our distracted age, genuine observation has become a lost art. We are with our children constantly, yet how often do we truly watch them, free from the interference of our phones, our to-do lists, our preconceptions about who we think they should be? Effective observation begins with presence. Set aside time, even just 10 or 15 minutes a day, to watch your child play, without directing, without teaching, without narrating their actions back to them. Simply observe. Notice what captures their attention. Watch how they approach problems. See which activities cause time to disappear for them, which moments create that state of flow where they become so absorbed they forget to eat or ask for snacks. Pay attention to what they choose when given freedom. In our overscheduled world, children rarely have truly unstructured time. But when they do, when they have hours to fill with nothing but their own inclinations, what do they choose? Do they build? Do they draw? Do they organize their toys by color, size, or category? Do they create elaborate imaginary worlds? Do they take things apart to see how they work? These freely chosen activities reveal authentic interests, not the interests we've imposed or the activities they do to please us. Listen to their questions. The questions children ask tell us what their minds are wrestling with, what puzzles fascinate them, what gaps in their understanding they're trying to fill. The child who asks why about everything isn't being annoying. They're demonstrating curiosity and a drive to understand causation. The child who asks about death, infinity, God, or other abstract concepts is capable of thinking in ways that many adults find challenging. Record these questions if you can. Over time, patterns will emerge that reveal the unique architecture of your child's mind. Observe their play with others. How does your child interact in groups? Are they natural leaders who organize games and resolve disputes? Do they prefer working alongside others without much interaction? Are they the child who notices when someone is left out? Do they become so absorbed in their own projects that social interaction becomes secondary? None of these patterns is better or worse than the others, but each tells you something about your child's strengths and inclinations. Watch for what comes easily versus what requires effort. We often assume that talents reveal themselves through ease, and sometimes they do. The child who reads at 3 without being formally taught is showing linguistic talent, but sometimes talent reveals itself through passionate persistence in the face of difficulty. The child who struggles with a challenging puzzle for an hour without giving up is showing grit and determination that may be more valuable than any specific skill. Notice their emotional responses to different Experiences. Does music move them to tears? Do they become distressed by injustice in stories or real life? Do they show remarkable calm in emergencies? Do they seem to need more downtime than other children to process their experiences? These emotional patterns often accompany and support specific talents. The child with intense emotional responses to music may have musical talent waiting to be developed. The child disturbed by injustice may become a passionate advocate or lawyer. The child who needs processing time may be a deep thinker whose talents require space to emerge. Keep records of your observations. A simple notebook where you jot down interesting moments, surprising accomplishments, or recurring patterns can become invaluable over time. In the moment, these observations may seem trivial, but over months and years, they create a portrait of your child's emerging self that casual memory cannot capture. Write down the day your 4-year-old explained how rain forms with sophisticated understanding. Note when your 6-year-old spent 3 hours building an elaborate marble run. Record the time your 8-year-old mediated a playground dispute with unexpected wisdom. These are not just cute memories, they're data points in the ongoing process of discovering who your child is becoming. The power of exposure. Hidden talents often remain hidden simply because children never encounter the domain in which those talents would flourish. A child with extraordinary musical ability may never discover this gift if they're never exposed to musical instruments or formal music education. A potential chess master may never encounter the game that would reveal their strategic brilliance. A future architect may never touch a set of building blocks complex enough to capture their spatial imagination. This is where parenting becomes an adventure in exposure. Our job is not to push our children towards specific outcomes, but to introduce them to the magnificent variety of human endeavor and see what resonates. Think of yourself as a guide through a vast museum of human possibility, pausing to let your child linger at exhibits that capture their imagination, moving on quickly from those that don't. Begin with breadth before depth. Young children need exposure to many different types of activities, experiences, and ways of being in the world. This doesn't mean signing them up for every class in the community center catalog. It means thoughtfully introducing them to different domains through play, observation, and accessible experiences. Expose them to music in all its forms. Play classical music during quiet activities. Put on jazz while you cook dinner. Let them hear folk music, world music, rock, hip-hop, and everything in between. Give them pots and wooden spoons to bang. Sing with them. Take them to free concerts in the park. Watch street musicians perform. Let them see that music comes in endless varieties and that making music is something humans do naturally, not just something that happens in concert halls. Introduce them to visual arts not through expensive art classes, but through everyday creativity. Fill a bin with collage materials, recyclables, fabric scraps, and buttons. Give them paint and enormous pieces of paper. Visit art museums and galleries, not with the goal of education, but with the simple invitation to see what catches their eye. Look at art books together. Point out beautiful design in everyday objects. Help them see that art is everywhere, that the human impulse to create beauty is woven into everything we make. Bring them into nature regularly and repeatedly. Walk the same trail in different seasons. Visit beaches, forests, mountains, deserts, wherever your geography allows. Give them magnifying glasses and field guides. Let them collect. Let them observe. Let them get dirty. Natural spaces offer endless opportunities for children to exercise curiosity, develop patience, practice observation, and encounter the complexity and beauty of living systems. Expose them to building and making. Provide blocks, Legos, and construction toys that allow for genuine creativity rather than simply following instructions. Give them tools appropriate to their age and let them build real things from wood or cardboard. Show them how things work by taking apart old machines together. Visit science museums with extensive hands-on exhibits. Let them see that humans are makers, that we shape our world through our hands and our ingenuity. Introduce them to stories in every form. Read to them constantly, but also tell them stories from your own life, from family history, from your imagination. Take them to the library regularly and let them choose their own books, even if their choices seem repetitive or below or above their reading level. Watch great films together, attend theatre performances, listen to podcasts or radio dramas. Help them see that humans are storytelling creatures, that we make sense of our world and our lives through narrative. Expose them to physical challenges appropriate to their development. This doesn't require expensive sports programs. It can be as simple as regular trips to playgrounds with increasingly complex equipment, hikes that challenge their endurance, swimming in various bodies of water, learning to ride bikes or skateboards, climbing trees, or exploring movement through dance. Physical confidence and competence open doors to many forms of excellence. Bring them into your world of work and passion. Let them see you engaged in your own work, whatever it is. Bring them into your hobbies. If you code, show them the basics. If you garden, give them their own plot. If you cook, let them help with age-appropriate tasks. If you play an instrument, let them hear you practice, mistakes and all. Children learn that activities are worthwhile by seeing adults engage in them with focus and pleasure. Introduce them to different languages and cultures through food, music, stories, and if possible, travel or relationships with people from backgrounds different from your own. This breadth of exposure teaches them that there are many ways to be human, many valid approaches to life, many traditions of excellence to explore. The key to successful exposure is following your child's lead. You can introduce an activity, but if it doesn't resonate, move on. Forcing continued participation in activities your child clearly doesn't enjoy teaches them to distrust their own inclinations and to perform for your approval rather than pursuing genuine interests. But if something does capture them, if their eyes light up, if they ask to return again and again, if they choose that activity during free time, then you've found something worth exploring more deeply. The role of unstructured play. In our achievement-obsessed culture, we have forgotten something essential. Children develop their talents through play, not through carefully designed educational programs, not through intensive specialized training starting at age 3. But through the kind of free, unstructured, self-directed play that has largely disappeared from modern childhood. When children play without adult direction or predetermined outcomes, remarkable things happen. They enter states of deep concentration that psychologists call flow, where time disappears and the distinction between effort and joy dissolves. They experiment freely because play has no consequences. They take risks because play is safe. They solve problems because play presents endless challenges that they've chosen themselves. They develop creativity because play demands it. Watch a child deeply absorbed in building a fort from couch cushions and blankets. They're not just stacking soft objects. They're engineering structures, solving problems of stability and enclosure, creating private spaces, exercising spatial intelligence, planning, executing, and revising their designs based on real-world feedback. No purchased fort-building kit could offer the same developmental value because no kit would require the same level of creative problem-solving. Observe a child lost in imaginative play with dolls or action figures. They're not just playing with toys. They're creating narratives, exploring social dynamics, working through emotions, practicing empathy by taking different perspectives, developing linguistic skills through dialogue, and constructing elaborate mental models of how relationships and society work. A child directing an imaginary world is exercising executive function, creativity, and social understanding simultaneously. Consider a child who spends an hour lining up toy cars by color, size, or type. They're not wasting time or engaging in meaningless repetition. They're exploring classification systems, practicing sustained attention, satisfying a need for order and pattern, and developing the kind of systematic thinking that underlies mathematics, science, and countless other domains. Free play in nature offers particularly rich opportunities for talent development. The child exploring a creek must navigate physical challenges, observe ecological relationships, exercise patience to spot wildlife, develop theories about how water moves and shapes landscapes, and regulate their emotions when things don't go as planned. All of this happens naturally, driven by curiosity and intrinsic motivation, which are the engines of deep learning and talent development. Unstructured play with peers adds another layer of complexity and opportunity. Children must negotiate rules, navigate conflicts, read social cues, take turns, compromise, and coordinate their actions with others. These skills underlie leadership, diplomacy, teamwork, and emotional intelligence. The child who organizes elaborate playground games with complex rules and roles is developing talents that might eventually flourish in business, politics, theater, or any field requiring group coordination. As parents, our job is not to direct play, but to protect it. This means providing time, the most precious resource in modern life. Children need hours of unstructured time regularly, not just the odd half hour between scheduled activities. They need whole afternoons, weekends, and summers where they're not constantly supervised or entertained, where boredom becomes the mother of invention. It means providing space. Children need places where they can make messes, build things that can stay built for days, spread out projects, and create without constant concern about damaging furniture or making noise. This might be a corner of a family room, a basement space, a backyard, or even a tent or fort that becomes semi-permanent. It means providing materials without scripts, open-ended materials like blocks, art supplies, fabric, cardboard boxes, natural objects, and simple props support play in ways that electronic toys or toys with predetermined purposes cannot. The best toys are 90% child and 10% toy. It means providing safety without hovering. Children need to take risks appropriate to their development, to climb higher than we're comfortable with, to argue with peers without immediate adult mediation, to face challenges without us rushing to help. These experiences build confidence, resilience, and the kind of self-knowledge that helps talents emerge. Most importantly, it means trusting the process. Play may look like a waste of time in a culture obsessed with measurable achievement, but it is the work of childhood. And through that work, hidden talents reveal themselves and begin to grow. The questions that reveal. Sometimes the fastest way to discover hidden talents is simply to ask children about themselves, but not with vague questions like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" which often elicit either confused silence or answers copied from adults. Instead, we can ask questions that invite children to reflect on their own experiences and preferences. What do you do that makes time disappear? This question points children toward activities that create flow, those experiences where they become so absorbed that hours pass like minutes. These flow activities often align with natural talents and interests. The child who loses track of time while drawing, building, reading, or solving puzzles is telling you where their engagement is deepest. What do you do that feels easy for you but seems hard for other people? This question helps children recognize their relative strengths. Every child has areas where they seem to succeed without the struggle others experience. Identifying these zones of ease helps distinguish genuine talent from activities that are merely enjoyable or challenging. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? This question removes the fear of failure that inhibits many children from pursuing their true interests. Sometimes children avoid activities they're drawn to because they're afraid of not being immediately excellent. This question gives them permission to imagine success and reveals what they'd choose if fear weren't a factor. What do you like to teach other people about? Children who understand something deeply often feel compelled to share that knowledge. The child who constantly explains dinosaur facts, demonstrates gymnastics moves, or shows others how to beat video game levels is revealing both knowledge and passion in that domain. When do you feel most like yourself? This question invites introspection about authentic experience. The moments when children feel most fully themselves are often moments when they're exercising their natural talents and inclinations without pretense or performance for others. What would you like to get better at? This question reveals aspiration and identifies areas where children sense room for growth. Sometimes talents hide behind frustration, behind the gap between what a child can do now and what they envision being able to do. That frustration can fuel the sustained effort that talent development requires. What do adults seem surprised that you know or can do? Children often have a good sense of when their abilities exceed age expectations. The areas where adults express surprise often indicate genuine strengths. If you could spend a whole day doing whatever you wanted, what would you do? This question reveals priorities. The activities children would choose when given total freedom tell us what matters most to them, and what matters most to them is often where their talents lie. What do you think about when you're supposed to be paying attention to something else? This question acknowledges that children's minds wander and asks them to examine where they wander to. The child whose thoughts constantly drift to stories they're composing, problems they're trying to solve, or creations they're planning to build is revealing where their authentic interests lie. Listen carefully to the answers to these questions, not just to the content, but to the energy behind them. When children talk about areas of genuine talent and interest, they become animated, detailed, and passionate. They have more to say than you can possibly absorb in one conversation. This enthusiasm is itself a sign that you're touching on something real and important to who they are. The environment that nurtures talent. Discovering talent is only the beginning. Talent unexposed to the right environment remains potential that never becomes actual. So once we've identified the seeds of ability in our children, we must create conditions that allow those seeds to germinate, take root, and eventually flourish. The foundation of a talent-nurturing environment is safety, both physical and emotional. Children must feel secure enough to try and fail, to experiment and make mistakes, to pursue interests that might seem odd or that differ from what their siblings or peers are doing. This safety requires us as parents to examine our own reactions to failure, difference, and paths we hadn't imagined for our children. When a child fails at something they care about, our response shapes whether they'll persist or give up. If we respond with disappointment, criticism, or immediately trying to fix the problem, we teach them that failure is dangerous and shameful. But if we respond with curiosity, helping them analyze what happened and what they might try differently, we teach them that failure is information, a natural and valuable part of the learning process. This insight comes from psychologist Carol Dweck's groundbreaking research on mindsets. Dweck discovered that people fall into two broad categories in how they think about their abilities. Those with a fixed mindset believe intelligence, talent, and ability are traits you're born with, fixed quantities that can't change much. Those with a growth mindset believe abilities can be developed through effort, good strategies, and help from others. The implications for talent development are profound. Children with fixed mindsets avoid challenges because failure would reveal their limitations. They give up easily when things become difficult because difficulty suggests they lack ability. They see effort as evidence of inadequacy, thinking that if they were truly talented, things would come easily. They feel threatened by others' success because it suggests they might not be as capable. Children with growth mindsets, however, embrace challenges because overcoming them leads to learning. They persist in the face of setbacks because they understand that struggle is part of growth. They see effort as the path to mastery. They learn from criticism rather than deflecting it. They're inspired by others' success because it shows what's possible with work. The astonishing finding in Dweck's research is that mindsets can be taught and changed. We can help our children develop growth mindsets through how we talk to them about their abilities and efforts. Instead of praising intelligence or talent with phrases like, "You're so smart," or "You're a natural," we can praise effort, strategies, and process with phrases like, "You worked really hard on that. I noticed you tried several different approaches until you found one that worked," or "You didn't give up even when it got frustrating." We can teach children that the brain is like a muscle that grows stronger with exercise, that mistakes create opportunities for neurons to make new connections, that struggling means you're learning something new. We can share stories of famous creators, inventors, and achievers who succeeded through persistent effort rather than innate genius alone. We can model growth mindset ourselves by talking about our own learning challenges and how we're working to overcome them. Beyond psychological safety, talent flourishes in environments rich with materials and opportunities. This doesn't mean expensive lessons or equipment. It means making sure children have access to the basic tools of their developing interests. The musically inclined child needs an instrument they can play without special permission, not locked away as too precious. The artistically inclined child needs abundant paper and diverse materials, not being limited to occasional sessions with monitored supplies. The scientifically curious child needs magnifying glasses, reference books, and space for collections and experiments. The athletically gifted child needs opportunities for physical challenges and practice. Time is perhaps the most crucial resource we can provide. Talent development requires what researchers call deliberate practice, focused, effortful work on specific skills just beyond current ability. But deliberate practice can't be forced or scheduled into 20-minute blocks between other activities. Children need long stretches of uninterrupted time to sink deeply into their areas of developing expertise. They need hours to write their stories, paint their pictures, build their structures, practice their music, work on their coding projects, or perfect their athletic skills. Mentorship matters enormously. While parents can support talent development, they often can't provide expert instruction in specific domains. Once a child's interests and abilities become clear, finding someone who has genuine expertise in that area can accelerate development dramatically. This might be a music teacher, an art instructor, a coach, a scientist willing to mentor a curious teenager, or simply someone in the community who's passionate about the same things your child is passionate about. But be cautious about formalizing this too early or too rigidly. The piano teacher who insists on scales and exercises for a 5-year-old who wants to make up songs may extinguish interest rather than developing it. The youth sports league that emphasizes competition and winning over play and skill development may push children away from sports rather than toward mastery. Look for teachers and programs that match your child's developmental stage and that share your values about how talents should be developed. Peer connections also support talent development. When children find others who share their passions, motivation multiplies. The child who loves chess transforms when they join a chess club where being good at chess is valued. The writer flourishes in a community of other young writers where storytelling is a shared currency. The athlete pushes themselves harder when training alongside others who love the same sport. These peer relationships provide not just companionship, but also models, inspiration, healthy competition, and the sense that pursuing excellence in a particular domain is normal and valuable. The traps to avoid. In our eagerness to nurture our children's talents, we can fall into several destructive traps that damage both the child and the developing talent. Recognizing these pitfalls is crucial because many of them disguise themselves as good parenting. The first trap is excessive pressure. When we discover that our child has unusual ability in some area, it's tempting to push hard, to invest heavily, to imagine futures as professional athletes, concert pianists, or gifted intellectuals. This pressure, even when wrapped in enthusiasm and support, can poison a child's relationship with their own talent. Research on child development and mental health increasingly shows that excessive parental pressure correlates with anxiety, depression, and burnout in children. When children feel that their worth depends on achievement in a particular domain, when they sense that their parents' identity or happiness is tied to their success, when failure in that domain would constitute not just disappointment, but a kind of betrayal, the psychological cost becomes unbearable. The child who shows early reading ability and is then pressured to read increasingly difficult books to prove their giftedness learns to associate reading with performance anxiety rather than pleasure. The young athlete whose parents invest enormous time and money in elite training and then react with barely concealed disappointment to losses learns that their athletic performance determines their parents' emotional state. The musically talented child who must practice for hours daily regardless of their mood or competing interests learns that music is not a source of joy but an obligation and a burden. This pressure often stems from good intentions. Parents want to maximize their child's potential, to give them every advantage, to ensure they don't waste their gifts. But human development doesn't work like tending a garden where more water and fertilizer always produce better results. Children are not plants to be forced into bloom. They're complex beings whose talents will only flourish if those talents remain connected to intrinsic motivation, to the child's own sense of pleasure and meaning in the activity. The second trap is overscheduling. When we identify multiple areas where a child shows promise, it's tempting to sign them up for lessons, teams, and programs in all those areas. Soon their weeks become a blur of classes and practices, with no time for free play, downtime, or simply being a child. This packed schedule has several destructive effects. First, it eliminates the unstructured time where creativity and deep interests flourish. Children need time to be bored, to daydream, to follow unexpected impulses, to develop their own projects. Without this time, they may become skilled at executing others' instructions, but never develop the self-direction that true expertise requires. Second, it exhausts them physically and mentally. Children's brains and bodies need rest. They need time where nothing is demanded of them, where they can process their experiences, where their nervous systems can down-regulate from the constant stimulation of structured activities. Burnout in childhood is real, and it can create aversion to the very activities that once brought joy. Third, it prevents them from discovering what they truly love, because they never go deep enough into any single domain to experience the satisfaction that comes from real mastery. Breadth is valuable for young children, but as they grow older, developing significant ability in any area requires the kind of sustained focus that's impossible when attention is scattered across 10 different activities. The third trap is comparison. In our connected world, it's easier than ever to see what other children are doing and achieving. Social media feeds show us the accomplishments of friends' children, and we can't help but measure our own children against these highlights. Within our own families, we compare siblings to each other, noting who's better at what, who shows more promise, who's progressing faster. This comparison is poison to talent development for several reasons. First, it teaches children that their worth is relative rather than intrinsic, that they matter based on how they rank against others rather than on their own growth and development. Second, it creates anxiety and pressure, activating the fixed mindset where children become afraid to try things they might not excel at immediately. Third, it damages relationships, creating resentment and competition between children who should be allies and supporters of each other. Every child's developmental path is unique. One child may show early brilliance in an area, while another is a late bloomer who doesn't reveal their talents until adolescence or later. One child's talents may be obvious and valued by mainstream culture, while another's are subtle and unconventional. Comparing these different trajectories makes no sense, yet we do it constantly, often without realizing the harm. The fourth trap is projection. Sometimes parents discover not their child's talents, but their own unfulfilled dreams. The parent who always wanted to play piano professionally but never had the chance may unconsciously push a child toward music. The parent who was never good at sports may overinvest in a child's athletic development. The parent who struggled academically may place enormous emphasis on intellectual achievement. Children are remarkably attuned to their parents' emotions and expectations. They sense what would please us, and because they love us and depend on us, they often try to become what we want them to be, rather than discovering who they actually are. A child may persist in an activity for years, becoming quite skilled, while never mentioning that they don't really enjoy it, because they know how much it means to their parent. The antidote to this trap is honest self-reflection. We must ask ourselves, is this really my child's passion, or is it mine? Am I supporting their authentic interests, or am I steering them toward what I value or what I missed? Would I be disappointed if they quit this activity? Why? These are uncomfortable questions, but answering them honestly is essential to giving our children the freedom to develop their own talents rather than living out our stories. The fifth trap is neglecting the whole child. When we discover a significant talent, it's tempting to focus on that talent to the exclusion of everything else. The young chess prodigy's entire life becomes about chess. The talented young violinist practices for hours daily, while other aspects of development are neglected. The gifted student is pushed academically, while physical, social, and emotional development are treated as secondary. But human beings are not single-purpose machines. We are complex organisms who need development across multiple domains to thrive. The child who develops one talent at the expense of their health, friendships, emotional regulation, or character becomes unbalanced in ways that often create problems in adolescence and adulthood. Moreover, deep expertise in one domain often benefits from breadth in others. The violinist is enriched by understanding physics. The mathematician is enhanced by studying philosophy. The athlete is improved by developing emotional intelligence. Children need to develop their talents, yes, but they also need to play, to have friends, to spend time in nature, to read for pleasure, to help with family responsibilities, to experience boredom, to have adventures, to get enough sleep, and to simply be children. When talent development consumes childhood, we may produce skilled performers, but we risk failing to raise whole, healthy, balanced human beings. The seasons of development. Understanding the natural rhythms of talent development can help us support our children appropriately at different life stages. Talent doesn't emerge according to a predictable schedule, but there are patterns we can recognize and phases we can navigate with greater wisdom if we understand what typically happens when. In early childhood, from birth through age 5 or 6, the focus should be on exposure and exploration rather than specialization. This is the season for breadth, for introducing children to many different domains, for following their curiosity wherever it leads. While we may notice early signs of particular abilities, premature specialization during this phase can actually limit development rather than enhancing it. Young children's brains are extraordinarily plastic, forming neural connections at a rate they'll never match again. This is the time to build a broad base of experiences and skills that will support later specialization. The child who never plays physically will have fewer opportunities to develop athletic talent later. The child who never hears or makes music will develop neither musical talent nor an appreciation for music. The child who's not exposed to books and stories will have difficulty developing literary talent later. During middle childhood, roughly ages 6 through 11, children become capable of more sustained focus and systematic learning. This is when formal instruction becomes valuable, when children can benefit from learning technique, when they can engage in deliberate practice. But even during this phase, the emphasis should be on skill development and enjoyment, rather than competitive achievement. This is an excellent time to try different teachers, different styles of instruction, different activities within a general domain. The child interested in music might try different instruments. The child who loves sports might sample several rather than specializing in one. The child fascinated by science might explore different branches through camps, clubs, and home experiments. The goal is still to find good matches between the child's natural inclinations and specific activities while building competence that makes those activities increasingly rewarding. Middle childhood is also when peer influences become stronger. Children start to care deeply about what their friends think and do. This can either support or undermine talent development. If a child's peer group values academics, music, or sports, those activities become easier to sustain. If the peer group devalues certain activities as nerdy or weird, children may abandon developing talents to fit in. Parents can't control peer dynamics, but we can help children find peer groups where their interests are valued and where developing talents is normalized. Adolescence, from about age 11 or 12 through the late teens, is when specialization often becomes appropriate for children who've found a domain they're passionate about. This is the season for depth, for taking developing abilities to new levels, for working with expert teachers, for joining elite groups of other talented young people. But this specialization should emerge from the child's own sustained interest and motivation, not from parental pressure. Adolescence is also when talent development confronts new challenges. Teenagers become acutely self-conscious, painfully aware of how they compare to peers. They're developing their identities and may resist being defined by a particular talent, especially if that talent has been emphasized by parents. They're negotiating independence and may reject activities that feel imposed even if they once enjoyed them. This is a delicate phase requiring parents to step back while remaining supportive. We must let go of outcomes while continuing to provide opportunities. We must accept that adolescents may need breaks from activities they've pursued for years, and that these breaks are not necessarily the end of their engagement. Many teenagers return to earlier interests after time away, bringing new maturity and renewed motivation. But some do abandon earlier talents, and this too is normal and acceptable. The goal was never to create a child prodigy, but to help a young person discover what brings meaning and satisfaction to their life. Late adolescence and young adulthood is when the fruits of talent development become most visible, but it's also when many young people dramatically shift their focus. The reality is that most childhood talents don't become careers, and that's perfectly fine. The child who showed mathematical brilliance may become a teacher rather than a mathematician. The talented young athlete may stop competing but maintain a lifelong love of physical activity. The gifted young musician may pursue a different career while continuing to play for personal satisfaction. What matters is not whether childhood talents become professional pursuits, but whether the process of discovering and developing those talents taught children to recognize their own abilities, to pursue excellence, to overcome obstacles, to find flow and satisfaction in skilled work, and to know themselves deeply. These lessons transfer to whatever paths they ultimately choose. The parent as Gardner. Perhaps the best metaphor for our role in discovering and nurturing children's talents is that of a gardener. We don't create the potential within our children any more than a gardener creates the potential within a seed. That potential is inherent, written into their fundamental nature. What we can do is create the conditions where that potential has the best chance to develop. Like good gardeners, we must pay attention to the specific plants we're tending. Different plants need different conditions. What makes tomatoes thrive will kill orchids. What nourishes roses will damage succulents. We cannot impose a single approach to all children and expect optimal results. We must observe, adjust, and customize our care to match the unique nature of each child. Like good gardeners, we must be patient. Seeds don't germinate on our schedule. Seedlings don't grow according to our timelines. Forcing faster growth through artificial means often produces weak plants that cannot survive normal conditions. Children's talents emerge in their own time, and our attempts to rush development often backfire. What looks like slow progress or a fallow period may actually be essential to later flourishing. Like good gardeners, we must provide the right balance of resources. Too much water drowns plants. Too little starves them. Too much fertilizer burns roots. Too little leaves plants stunted. Too much sun scorches leaves. Too little leaves plants pale and weak. Similarly, our children need the right balance of stimulation and rest, challenge and support, independence and guidance, structure and freedom. Finding these balances requires careful attention and frequent adjustment. Like good gardeners, we must understand the difference between cultivating and controlling. We can improve soil, manage water, provide support structures, and protect from pests. But we cannot dictate what a plant will become. An acorn will become an oak, not a rose, no matter what we do. Our children will become themselves, not versions of us or fulfillments of our dreams. The more we try to control what emerges, the more we risk damaging or distorting natural development. Like good gardeners, we must sometimes prune. This doesn't mean cutting away our children's interests or limiting their possibilities. It means helping them recognize when they've taken on too much, when their energy is scattered too thin to allow deep growth in any direction. It means supporting decisions to stop activities that no longer serve them. It means creating space for the most vital growth by clearing away what's merely filling space. Like good gardeners, we must accept that not every seed will flourish, no matter how good our care. Some interests our children develop will not become lasting talents. Some early promise will not develop as we expected. Some talents will emerge that we never anticipated and perhaps don't fully understand or value. Our job is not to produce specific outcomes, but to tend faithfully to whatever wants to grow. Like good gardeners, we must think in terms of seasons and cycles rather than linear progress. There will be periods of rapid, visible growth and periods where nothing seems to be happening. Both are normal and necessary. There will be times of flourishing and times of difficulty. Our job is to remain steady through all seasons, neither becoming overly excited by success nor overly concerned by apparent setbacks. And like good gardeners, we must eventually step back and let what we've tended grow on its own. The goal is not to create dependence, but to nurture capacity for independent growth. As our children mature, our role naturally diminishes. We move from intensive cultivation to occasional consultation, from making decisions about their development to supporting their own decision making. This stepping back is not abandonment, but the natural completion of our task. The gifts that hide in plain sight. Sometimes the most important talents are the ones we almost miss because they don't fit conventional categories or because they manifest in unexpected ways. These are the capacities that don't have obvious activities or classes associated with them, the abilities that don't lead to clear career paths, the gifts that our culture may undervalue even when they're essential to human flourishing. Emotional intelligence is perhaps the most underestimated talent. Some children have an extraordinary capacity to read emotional states, to sense what others are feeling, to navigate social complexity with unusual skill. These children may not test as gifted academically, but they're the ones who notice when someone is sad and needs comfort, who can mediate conflicts with wisdom, who make others feel seen and valued. In a world that emphasizes technical skills and measurable intelligence, we may overlook this talent, even though it predicts life satisfaction and success in relationships, perhaps better than any other single ability. If you notice that your child shows unusual emotional perceptiveness, nurture this gift. Help them name emotions in themselves and others. Discuss motivations and feelings of characters in books and movies. Model empathy and emotional regulation. Create opportunities for your child to help others and to practice the skills of emotional leadership. These capacities can develop into counseling, teaching, mediation, management, or any field where understanding people is paramount. Persistence is another often overlooked talent. Some children have an extraordinary ability to stick with difficult tasks long after others would have given up. They may not be the quickest learners or the most naturally gifted, but they have grit, determination, and the ability to delay gratification in service of long-term goals. This talent is perhaps the best predictor of eventual high achievement in any domain, yet we often fail to recognize and celebrate it. If your child shows unusual persistence, honor this capacity. Don't shield them from appropriate challenges. Help them set ambitious but achievable goals. Teach them strategies for maintaining motivation over time. Share stories of people who succeeded through persistent effort rather than innate ability. Help them see their persistence as a strength that will serve them throughout their lives in whatever they choose to pursue. Curiosity is a talent that can hide beneath behaviors that adults find annoying. The child who asks endless questions, who can't leave things alone, who takes things apart to see how they work, who reads everything they encounter, who wants to understand why things are the way they are, is exercising a capacity that drives all learning and discovery. Yet we often try to dampen this curiosity because it's exhausting to constantly answer questions or because we fear they'll break something valuable. If your child shows intense curiosity, feed this hunger. Answer questions as fully as you can. When you don't know answers, explore together. Provide books, documentaries, museums, nature, and other sources of information. Teach them how to research and find answers independently. Let them take apart old appliances. Accept that curiosity sometimes results in messes or broken items. This talent, properly supported, can develop into scientific thinking, investigative journalism, problem solving, innovation, or simply a rich, engaged life of continuous learning. Humor is a sophisticated cognitive and social ability that we often dismiss as mere entertainment. But children who can see absurdity, make connections that create laughter, use humor to navigate difficulty, and bring joy to others are exercising a form of intelligence that makes life more bearable for themselves and everyone around them. Humor requires perspective taking, creativity, timing, reading social situations, and linguistic sophistication. If your child shows genuine humor, as opposed to simply repeating jokes they've heard, celebrate this gift. Laugh with them. Share comedy that's appropriate to their age. Discuss what makes things funny. Teach them the difference between humor that includes and humor that excludes or hurts. Help them understand that bringing joy and laughter to others is a gift to the world and a strength that will serve them well. Compassion is the capacity to not only recognize others' suffering, but to be moved to help alleviate it. Some children seem born with this impulse. They're the ones who share without being asked, who comfort classmates who are sad, who worry about hungry people or mistreated animals, who want to make the world better. In a competitive society that emphasizes individual achievement, we may see this compassion as naive or as something to be balanced with more self-interested concerns. But compassion may be the most important human capacity, the root of all ethical behavior and social progress. If your child shows deep compassion, nurture this precious gift carefully. Don't let cynicism or pragmatism crush it. Help them find age-appropriate ways to act on their compassion through volunteering, donations, advocacy, or simple acts of kindness. Teach them that they can't solve every problem, but that every act of compassion matters. Model compassion yourself. Help them see that this capacity is a strength, not a weakness, and that the world desperately needs people who care deeply about others' well-being. Organization is a talent that manifests as an unusual ability to create and maintain order, to develop systems, to see how parts relate to wholes, to make complex things understandable and manageable. The child who organizes their toys by category, who creates elaborate filing systems for their collections, who makes schedules and plans, who can see how to structure a project or activity, is showing a capacity that underlies success in countless fields. If your child shows organizational talent, provide opportunities to exercise it. Let them help organize family activities. Give them responsibility for managing their own space and schedules. Teach them about different organizational systems and tools. Help them see how organization reduces stress and increases effectiveness. This talent can develop into project management, operations, library science, administration, or simply the ability to manage one's own life with grace and efficiency. Cultivating character alongside talent. As we help our children discover and develop their talents, we must remain mindful that ability without character is, at best, wasted potential and, at worst, dangerous. History offers countless examples of extraordinarily talented people who used those talents destructively, or who led miserable lives despite their abilities because they lacked the character to handle success, cope with failure, maintain relationships, or find meaning beyond achievement. Character development must happen alongside talent development. In fact, the process of developing talents offers excellent opportunities to build character if we approach it thoughtfully. Working to develop any talent teaches perseverance. When children experience the frustration of trying to master something difficult, when they fail repeatedly before succeeding, when they want to quit but push through to eventual achievement, they're building resilience and grit that will serve them in every area of life. Our job is to help them see this connection, to name the character quality they're developing, to celebrate not just the achievement, but the persistence that made it possible. Talent development also offers opportunities to build humility. When children realize how much work it takes to develop even modest expertise in any domain, when they encounter others more skilled than themselves, when they recognize that talent is a gift to be stewarded rather than a badge of superiority, they develop the humility that makes continued learning possible. We can foster this humility by modeling our own learning struggles, by introducing our children to people with greater expertise who remain humble and helpful, and by emphasizing growth over status. Working with others to develop talents builds collaboration and teamwork, whether in music, ensembles, team sports, group projects, or classes with other learners. Children learn to coordinate their efforts with others, to support teammates, to accept different roles, to compromise for the good of the group. These experiences teach that individual talent reaches its fullest expression in community, and that we often accomplish more together than we ever could alone. Talent development can also build integrity and honesty. When children are tempted to cheat, to claim credit they haven't earned, to compare themselves dishonestly to others, we have opportunities to teach the importance of honest self-assessment and ethical behavior. We can help them understand that true satisfaction comes from genuine achievement, not false claims, and that integrity is more important than any accomplishment. Exposure to others' talents teaches appreciation and gratitude. When children observe the skill and dedication of teachers, coaches, performers, and other talented people, they can learn to appreciate excellence in others without envy, to be grateful for those who share their gifts, to support others' success rather than feeling threatened by it. We cultivate this by modeling appreciation ourselves, by pointing out excellence when we encounter it, by showing children how to express genuine admiration. The challenges of talent development offer opportunities to build emotional regulation. Learning any skill involves frustration, disappointment, and sometimes failure. Children who learn to manage these difficult emotions, to calm themselves when upset, to maintain motivation despite setbacks, are developing emotional capacities they'll need throughout their lives. We support this by acknowledging their feelings without dismissing them, by teaching concrete strategies for emotional management, and by modeling our own emotional regulation. Finally, reflecting on why they're developing particular talents can help children develop purpose and meaning. We can ask questions like, why does this matter to you? How do you want to use this ability? Who might benefit from what you're learning? These questions help children connect their developing talents to values and purpose larger than mere achievement or recognition. This sense of purpose sustains motivation when the going gets difficult and ensures that talents ultimately serve meaningful ends. The truth about giftedness: some children will show abilities so far beyond age expectations that they're identified as gifted or talented in formal ways. These identifications can be both blessing and burden, and it's important to understand what they mean and don't mean. Being identified as gifted doesn't mean a child will automatically succeed or have an easy life. In fact, giftedness often comes with challenges that can make life harder rather than easier. Gifted children frequently experience asynchronous development, where their cognitive abilities far outpace their emotional or social development. The 6-year-old who can discuss philosophy may not be able to tie their shoes. The teenager who can do college-level math may struggle to make friends or manage their emotions. Gifted children often experience the world more intensely than others. They may be emotionally sensitive, deeply affected by news or stories, easily overwhelmed in stimulating environments. They may have perfectionist tendencies that create anxiety and fear of failure. They may feel different from peers and struggle to find intellectual or creative peers who share their interests and abilities. For parents of gifted children, the challenge is to advocate for appropriate educational opportunities while also supporting the whole child. Gifted children need academic challenge, but they also need play, friendship, physical activity, and all the elements of a healthy childhood. They need to be pushed beyond their comfort zone intellectually, but they also need to be allowed to fail safely and to learn that their worth isn't tied to their achievements. One of the most damaging things we can do to gifted children is to make their giftedness central to their identity. When children are constantly referred to as gifted, when their unusual abilities are emphasized repeatedly, when they sense that being gifted is what makes them valuable to parents and teachers, they often develop fragile identities that can shatter when they encounter limits or when they meet others who are more capable. Instead, we can acknowledge their abilities matter-of-factly while emphasizing that everyone has strengths and challenges, that abilities are meant to be developed and used in service of good purposes, and that a person's worth comes from their character and their contributions rather than from their test scores or accomplishments. Giftedness identification can open doors to programs, resources, and communities that serve children with unusual needs. These opportunities can be valuable, providing appropriate intellectual stimulation and peer groups where being interested in complex ideas is normal. But they can also create pressure, comparison, and premature specialization if we're not careful. The goal is not to produce gifted children, but to discover and nurture whatever unique combination of abilities each child possesses. Some children will fit formal definitions of giftedness. Others will have significant talents that never quite meet those definitions. Still others will be capable in many areas without being exceptional in any single one. All of these paths are valid, and all of these children deserve support in becoming their best selves. when talents don't emerge. Despite our best efforts at exposure, observation, and support, some parents find themselves worried that their child hasn't shown any particular talents or strong interests. They see other children passionate about music, excelling at sports, or showing academic brilliance, while their own child seems content but unremarkable, engaged but not exceptional. This worry, while understandable, usually reflects misunderstanding about how talent emerges and what counts as talent. Not all talents are obvious or early emerging. Not all gifts fit conventional categories. And focusing too intently on finding and naming talents can actually interfere with their natural development. Some children are what psychologists call multi-potentialites, people with interests and abilities across many domains who never settle into one primary talent area. These children may seem scattered or uncommitted compared to peers who focus intensely on one thing, but their breadth is itself a kind of gift, allowing them to make connections across domains, to synthesize diverse knowledge to adapt to changing circumstances, and to find satisfaction in variety rather than specialization. Some children are late bloomers whose talents don't become apparent until adolescence or even adulthood. This is particularly common with creative talents, leadership abilities, and certain intellectual capacities that require maturity to fully emerge. The child who shows no particular talents at age 8 may reveal themselves to be a gifted writer at 15, a compelling leader at 20, or an innovative entrepreneur at 30. Some children's talents are so integrated into their personality that we don't recognize them as special abilities. The child who has always been kind, who naturally helps others, who makes people feel comfortable and included, has genuine talent in emotional intelligence and relationship building, even if these don't look like traditional talents, with clear demonstrations and measurements. And some children are simply still in the exploration phase, gathering experiences and knowledge that will eventually coalesce into recognizable abilities and interests. The child who tries many things without commitment, who samples broadly without specializing, may be building a foundation that will support later development in ways we cannot yet see. If you're worried that your child hasn't shown clear talents, resist the urge to intensify your search or to push them toward activities. Instead, ensure they have regular exposure to diverse experiences, abundant free time for self-directed exploration, and the message that you love and value them for who they are rather than for any achievements or abilities. Trust that every child has gifts, even if those gifts are not yet visible or don't fit into conventional categories. Your job is not to produce a talented child, but to create conditions where whatever talents exist can emerge naturally when the time is right. Sometimes the best thing we can do is simply to get out of the way and let development unfold, celebrating the ordinary alongside the exceptional. In a culture obsessed with excellence, with producing exceptional children who excel in measurable ways, we risk forgetting that most of life is ordinary, that most people are not exceptional in any particular domain, and that there is profound value and dignity in ordinary lives well lived. Not every child will have extraordinary talents. Not every child will achieve at exceptional levels. Not every child will stand out from the crowd or make marks that the world will remember. And this is not only okay, it is the normal human experience. The vast majority of people live good, meaningful, satisfying lives without being exceptional at anything in particular. Our children need to know that their worth doesn't depend on having unusual talents or achieving at high levels. They need to understand that a life of kindness, love, contribution, and engagement is a successful life, regardless of whether it includes exceptional achievements. they need, to see that we value who they are more than what they can do. This doesn't mean we abandon the search for talents or stop supporting children's development. It means we keep that search and support in perspective. We celebrate talents when they emerge, but we don't make their emergence the measure of our parenting success or our children's worth. We support high achievement when children are motivated toward it, but we also celebrate effort, growth, kindness, and all the small victories that make up a life. We teach our children to appreciate excellence in others without needing to achieve it themselves. We help them find satisfaction in developing competence rather than demanding exceptional performance. We model lives that include both striving and acceptance, both ambition and contentment. Perhaps most importantly, we resist the cultural pressure that insists every child must be special, must stand out, must excel. This pressure serves no one well. It makes parents anxious and overly invested in their children's achievements. It makes children feel that love is conditional on performance. It creates a zero-sum game where one child's success implies another's failure. Instead, we can embrace a more humane and realistic understanding of human development. Every child has strengths and weaknesses, interests and aversions, capacities and limits. Every child is unique, but unique doesn't mean exceptional. Every child deserves support to become the best version of themselves, but best version doesn't require being better than others or achieving at levels that earn recognition and praise. When we free ourselves and our children from the tyranny of exceptionalism, we create space for authentic development. We allow children to pursue interests simply because those interests bring satisfaction, rather than because they might lead to achievement. We support skill development because competence feels good rather than because it produces status. We value growth for its own sake rather than for the outcomes it might generate, the ultimate goal. As we conclude this exploration of discovering children's hidden talents, let us return to the fundamental question: why does this matter? What is the ultimate goal of helping children discover and develop their abilities? The goal is not to produce child prodigies or to gain admission to elite programs. It's not to have impressive accomplishments to share with relatives or to post on social media. It's not even to ensure future career success or financial security, though talent development may contribute to these outcomes. The goal is to help children know themselves deeply, to understand what brings them satisfaction and meaning, to develop capacities that will allow them to contribute to the world in ways that feel authentic to who they are. The goal is to help them experience the profound satisfaction that comes from working at the edge of their abilities, from creating or performing or solving problems or helping others through the application of their gifts. The goal is to teach them that they have agency in their own development, that they're not simply passive recipients of whatever abilities they were born with, but active participants in cultivating and directing those abilities toward meaningful ends. The goal is to help them build identities, not around fixed traits, but around growth, learning, and the ongoing process of becoming. The goal is to support them in finding activities and pursuits that create flow, those experiences of optimal engagement where challenge and skill are perfectly matched, where time disappears and effort feels like play. These flow experiences contribute enormously to life satisfaction and well-being, perhaps more than any external achievement. The goal is to help them develop resilience through the process of working to improve at something difficult, to learn that setbacks are normal and surmountable, that frustration is temporary, that persistence pays off. These lessons, learned through talent development, transfer to every domain of life. The goal is to help them find communities of others who share their interests and abilities. to give them the experience of being understood and challenged by peers who value what they value. These connections often become lifelong sources of meaning and support. Most fundamentally, the goal is to communicate through our attention, support, and celebration that we see them, that we value who they actually are rather than who we hoped they'd be, that we're committed to helping them become themselves rather than some predetermined ideal. This message, conveyed through years of patient observation and responsive support, may be the greatest gift we can give our children. The path forward. As you move forward in this adventure of discovering your child's hidden talents, remember that there is no single right way to navigate this journey. Every family, every child, every circumstance is unique. What works beautifully for one family may be completely wrong for another. Your task is not to follow someone else's path, but to find the way that serves your particular child and family. Begin where you are. You don't need special training or resources to start observing your child more carefully, to provide richer experiences, to protect time for free play, to ask thoughtful questions, to respond to emerging interests with support rather than pressure. These fundamentals are within reach of every parent, regardless of resources or expertise. Be patient with the process and with yourself. You will make mistakes. You will misread signs and miss opportunities. You will sometimes push too hard or not provide enough support. You will occasionally project your own wishes onto your child or compare them unfairly to others. These failures are normal and inevitable. What matters is that you notice them, adjust, and keep learning alongside your child. Stay connected to your child's experience rather than to outcomes. Check in regularly about how they're feeling about their activities. Are they enjoying themselves? Do they look forward to practices and lessons? Do they feel the right balance of challenge and support? Are they pursuing their interests or yours? Let their answers guide your decisions more than external measures of success. Celebrate growth and effort more than achievements. Notice when your child sticks with something difficult, tries a new strategy, or improves through practice. These process markers matter more than any performance or outcome. They're what sustain motivation and build the growth mindset that makes continued development possible. Protect childhood even as you support talent development. Your child gets only one childhood. Don't let the pursuit of talent development consume these irreplaceable years. Ensure there's time for play, for boredom, for family connection, for adventures, for rest. The memories your child will treasure will likely involve ordinary moments of joy more than achievements and accolades. Remember that you are not alone on this journey. Other parents are navigating the same challenges, asking the same questions, feeling the same doubts. Seek out communities of support, whether in-person parent groups or online forums, where you can share experiences and learn from others. Connect with teachers, coaches, and mentors who know your child and can offer insights. Build a team of support around your family. Most importantly, trust your child and trust the process. The talents that need to emerge will emerge when the conditions are right. Your job is not to force blooms, but to tend the garden faithfully, to provide what's needed and protect from what's harmful, and then to trust that growth will happen in its own time and its own way. Every child truly is a unique reservoir of potential. Some of that potential will develop into recognized talents. Some will remain quietly influential in shaping a life without ever becoming public accomplishments. Some will emerge early, others late, still others never. All of it matters. All of it is worthy of attention and care. All of it is part of the magnificent complexity of human development. As you observe your children, as you offer them opportunities, as you support their efforts and celebrate their growth, you are participating in one of life's great privileges, bearing witness to a human being becoming themselves. There is no more important work than this. There is no greater responsibility than stewarding another person's development with wisdom, patience, and love. The hidden talents within your children are waiting to be discovered. Some reveal themselves easily, almost insisting on being noticed. Others hide deeper, requiring patience and particular conditions to emerge. Still others will surprise you, appearing in forms you never expected, in domains you never thought to explore. Your faithful attention, your unconditional love, your willingness to see your children as they actually are rather than as you imagined they'd be. These create the safe space where hidden talents can emerge into the light. This is not easy work. It requires setting aside your own agendas, managing your own anxieties, accepting that your children's paths may look nothing like what you envisioned. But it is work that repays every effort with the profound satisfaction of watching a young person discover their own capabilities, develop confidence in their abilities, and begin to imagine how they might contribute their gifts to the world. These moments, when a child's eyes light up with recognition of their own potential, when they push through difficulty to achieve something they didn't think they could do, when they lose themselves in joyful engagement with developing abilities, these moments justify all the patience, support, and faith required to reach them. Your children are not problems to be solved or projects to be managed. They are mysteries to be honored, individuals to be discovered, and lives to be supported with all the wisdom and love you can offer. The hidden talents within them are part of that mystery, waiting for the right moments to reveal themselves. Trust the journey. Trust your children. Trust that love, attention, opportunity, and time will allow whatever needs to emerge to do so. And trust that the ultimate measure of success is not the talents discovered or the achievements earned, but the relationship built, the confidence fostered, and the knowledge that your children carry into adulthood that they were seen, valued, and supported in becoming themselves. If you found this exploration of discovering hidden talents valuable, please consider subscribing to DREAMLAB Knowledge and sharing this with other parents, educators, and caregivers who might benefit from thinking deeply about how we support children's development. Your support allows us to continue exploring these profound questions about how we help the next generation develop into their fullest potential. Sleep well, and may your own journey of discovering your children's gifts be filled with patience, wonder, and the deep satisfaction that comes from helping another human being flourish.